going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. I have a special guest with me today, my dad, Chris Cardinale. Dad, how's it going?
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good. So, my dad's feeling Jake and Justin in the morning, the show that I co-host with Justin, who you guys have seen on here, and then with our show. He's been on that show a couple of times, so I figured I'd bring him onto this show. So, Dad, I see you're rocking the Charles Oakley Knicks jersey. Very nice.
Yes, sir. My boy. Back when the Knicks were good.
Yeah, they're just trying to put it together now after a very long time of misery.
Yeah, definitely a work in progress for sure.
Yes, definitely working for it. We'll see what happens this off season. But let's jump right in. Today we're going to talk about the Mets, the Rangers, and we'll talk a little bit of golf. So let's start with the Mets. So Mets have been really disappointing. Lost again today. We're at the time we're filming it. It's Wednesday night. They lost 10-8 to the Astros. Another series that they lost. Astros are defending champs, but they were struggling, and they still took 2 out of 3. They won 10-8 today. So then, what's wrong with the Mets?
Wow, it's been a weird season. It's been a weird season. They didn't start that bad, to be honest with you. Obviously, coming into the season, you and I are both huge Met fans. You know, your dad's a huge Mets fan. You know me. As soon as Diaz got hurt, I thought this team is jinxed because he was made a good. They got to put a decent team together, but he was maybe the best player on the team after getting him and him being so bad for a couple of years and really turning it around, and then last year just being. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a reliever. I've never seen a reliever that's pitched for the Mets, and I watched the Mets win in '86. I've never seen a guy do what he was doing. He was off the twos, and he was lights out. Pretty much, he was lights out. He reminded me of different pitcher, but reminded me of Doc in like 84, 85 when he came. It was like it was must see TV when Doc came out. And same thing, you know, when Tommy Trumpet or Timmy Trumpet or whatever it is, when that played, it was like it was over. It was over. So that I think it's caught up with the Mets now. The last month or so, right in the beginning, I didn't think it did. I mean, thank God they got Robertson. Or they would be in worse shape than they are now. But I think it's a cumulative effect on the bullpen. You know, they've been trying to juggle between Ottavino and Robertson. And Robertson's been great.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have talked a couple of times. We're really not sure what Buck is, and I like Buck, but I don't know what he's doing with the bullpen. It's very weird. Why he like sometimes he decides to go to Ottavino to play. I don't get it. I don't get it. But right now the pitching is just it's horrible. They have maybe the worst starting pitching in baseball right now, record wise. They can't go deep, so they're relying on their bullpen constantly. And instead of going 2 innings or 3 innings where you could go, you know, pick a guy to come in the 7th inning, then go to then go to Robertson, then go to Diaz, lights out, close it out. It's completely changed. Now they're scrambling, and now it's just getting worse and worse, and they can't hold a lead right now. No. Even their starters. I mean, sure. It's just been bad. It's been bad. So I think right now, because they're starting to hit again.
Mm-hmm.
They're hitting. I mean, look what they lose today, 10-8.
Yeah.
You know, and they were losing in the game to start right away. First inning, they came back. They were down. They came back. They were down. They came back, and they brought in this guy De Leon. I mean, he's been brutal. He's a home run machine, in a bad way. And he lost the game after they had come all the way back.
Yeah, the pitching's been really, really bad. If you look at the pitching, there's very few guys you can say have been consistently been what their baseball card says.
Yeah.
Scherzer has not.
No.
You know, has he had more quality starts than not quality starts? Yes, but Scherzer's supposed to be a top 5 guy in the league. He's one of the greatest starting pitchers of his generation.
Yeah.
That's him. The only guys who are better than him are probably Clayton Kershaw, Jimmy Verlander. He's one of the best of his generation. First ballot Hall of Famer once he retires.
Verlander too.
Right, yeah, and Verlander.
Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. They've been inconsistent. They've been very mediocre, and you see that, they're coming off injuries. They've been like Verlander's been back for like 6 weeks. Scherzer has overcome all the stuff with the Rosen suspension, which I didn't agree with, by the way. The
Yeah, it's
shoulder
crazy.
the shoulder problem he was pitching through, the neck thing that cost him a start, that's all in the past. So at this point,
Yeah,
injuries
it's
are
new season.
not a concern anymore. And I mean, Scherzer his last time out pitched great, but his previous couple were not good. The two of those guys they'll have one or two great outings, like, oh, here they are, and then they get knocked out in the fourth inning, and it's like, oh,
And they have them usually stacked both together. And I mean, maybe once that they've both pitched well back to back. I mean, we were watching the game today. They were showing a stat. I was talking to you about the stat today. Verlander's record with the Astros is 60 something and 17. Think about that. It's one of the best winning percentages of any. It's a better winning percentage than Pedro when he was with Boston. I mean, the numbers are all. It's like a 750 winning percentage.
yeah.
It's crazy, but it's unfortunately started out injured. He's probably just rounding into form now. He pitched really good the last game. But he just hasn't. He's not the guy that they're both making $43 million a year.
Exactly.
That's a lot of money. That's the two of them are almost making as much as like maybe like teams like Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Like the whole team. You know what I mean? I don't know what their payroll is, but it's not much more than that.
They're making more than I think a couple of teams, entire teams.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, they got problems right now. They're already scrambling. They're already scrambling to figure out what they're going to do. I mean, it's almost crazy to say that they wouldn't be buyers at the break because they got to do something. But if they keep playing this bad, they might be sellers at the break. They're that bad right now. They're not catching the Braves.
No,
the Braves are a better baseball team. They just are top to bottom. They're a better hitting team. They got better pitching, just top to bottom. But it would be an embarrassment not to make the wild cards. And you got look at their division. Yeah. Look at what the Marlins are doing. Yeah, look at what the Marlins. Phillies too. Phillies are hot also. Mets got problems. Yeah, Mets got problems. I don't believe in the Phillies as much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never know. Yeah. And who knows with them? And the funny thing is with the Marlins, their best pitcher is not pitching well.
Alcantara's got like a 5-year ERA.
He's not even pitching that well, and they're doing but they have this. They got that kid that's on that team.
Oh yeah, he's hitting 400 right now.
Bro, all right. So I don't watch the American League much. I really don't. So, but we watched a couple of series against the Marlins, and you hear the broadcasters talk about this guy, and they're like, I mean, this guy's a legit. It's not like he just came out of nowhere this year. I looked up his stats today. I mean, he's well over a 300 hitter for the last 4 or 5 years. This guy can hit, and now he's flirting with 400 this year. I mean, he's that good. What was Minnesota thinking? I mean, what did the Marlins trade to get?
So Minnesota got Pablo Lopez, who's a decent starter. He hasn't had his. I was looking at his ERA. I think it's a little over 4. He's usually his ERA for his score usually I think a little bit better than that. I think the thought process was at the time, Marlins were a team that had a surplus of pitching, but they really needed another bat. And then Minnesota was a team that had a pretty good lineup, but they really need pitching. So the Marlins got a really good hitter, and the Twins got a guy who can help the rotation. And I think maybe the Marlins took a couple prospects or something like that.
Yeah, not to bring up another name that we probably don't want to talk about, but another stat I looked at. So this guy, I forget his name, the kid that's playing for the Marlins. He's got 90. He has 90 something hits already. So if you get 200 hits in a season, that's a great season. So he's got 90 something hits. All right. So the guy leading Minnesota with hits is Correa with 51. He's leading their team with 51 hits, and he's not even having a great year. But I mean, think about that. I don't know. I honestly, I didn't really know who the guy was, but I mean, if that guy had been on the Mets and they traded him, he was doing this, people would be freaking out.
Oh God.
I mean, I don't understand how a team. Well, that's why Minnesota hasn't won since Kirby Puckett. So, there's a reasons why teams are bad. It really comes down to ownership and not only ownership but how they run their teams. So, yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about the Mets. Their pitching is not good right now, and if it doesn't turn around, they're going to be guys are going to lose their jobs. I mean, it's I don't I don't I don't know enough about Epler to complain that much. I mean, I would have liked obviously them to have a better bullpen, but it's not his fault that Diaz got hurt.
Right.
He did bring in Robertson, but the other guys are the guys and hitting too. I mean, McNeil's not having a good year.
Not at all.
He's not having a good year. Stalling Marte, it's been okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can if you don't watch the Mets every single day and you look at stats. All right. So if you look at stats, you'd say, well, Lindor, he's having a great year. He's not having a great year. He's hit for a lot of power, and he's got 50 something RBIs, but he hasn't had a great year. He hasn't had a lot of he really hasn't.
He's hitting like maybe 220. His OPS is maybe 710.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a switch hitter too. I mean, from the other side of the plate, he's barely hitting 200.
Yeah, that's right. He's hitting like one. I saw Saints hitting like 198 from.
Yeah. Crazy. He's been driving in some runs. Some of them are. The only guy that was really relatively consistent, who was just above, was above him in RBIs, was Alonso, who did hit a home run today. Thank God, because you know what? I thought he rushed himself back. Because he looked terrible for the first 2 days. He just didn't look like himself. Because he's not only a power hitter, Alonso. Alonso can hit.
Mm-hmm.
He can hit. He's gotten better every single year, but he's not a 250 hitter. He's a 275, 285 hitter with stupid power.
Yeah.
So and he just continues to get better. So that doesn't help the Mets either. But right now it's pitching. They're getting killed. They're getting killed.
Yeah, and you go through every starter. Like Scherzer he's been mediocre, going to been mediocre. They're being paid to be the best. Senga's been one start. He goes out there, he gives you 7 innings. The next start, he's out by the 5th inning. To me, the issue has been that ghost stroke that he hasn't commanded it well. To me, he's walking too many guys.
He does walk guys. But I'll tell you what, as a third starter, I'll take what he's giving us. If our other two guys, if our 1 and our 2,
that's the problem.
We can live with what he's doing right now and then some. And then I'll be honest with you, like Quintana, I didn't really follow him. I guess he had a good year. He came from the Cardinals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess he had a good year last year. But I mean, with another guy that, I mean, that's not Epler's fault. The fact that they bring the guy in and the guy hasn't pitched an inning for the Mets yet. So and they've had some highlights. They've had this, they lose their catchers. They decide they're going to bring up this kid Alvarez. First 2 weeks, or not, maybe first week and a half, guy he looked like a deer in the headlights, and then boom. You see why he's the number 1 prospect in baseball. This kid's got some stupid power. He can hit. He slowed down a little bit the last week or so, but he can hit. He could hit, and they're still, they've started hitting. They're pitching. It's pitching right now. Their pitching is bad.
Yeah, and just Senga's been inconsistent. Carlos Carrasco's been horrible. He looks done.
Yeah, and then he goes out and he pitches. Bro, he's the worst pitcher in the first inning I may have ever seen in my entire life.
Bad. His ERA in the first inning since he joined the Mets is at least 6, maybe like 8.
Yeah, I mean one of the games where he gave up a bunch of runs in the first inning, they actually won. They hit so much that they actually won one of those games. Otherwise, I mean, they could have done what they've been doing, but they're not good enough. They weren't good enough early in the season when he was giving up those runs because they weren't hitting. Now they're hitting. They've scored a lot of runs, and they're still losing baseball games because they can't. I mean, Scherzer's lost 2 big leads, both in big games.
Mm-hmm.
One to Atlanta. I forget who it was against the second time, but same thing. The Yankees, yeah. So, it just hasn't been pretty to watch right now. It's killing me too because I'm like, I'm down here in Florida, so I gotta pay extra to watch my teams, and I have to have a package for every sport.
Mhm.
But, I'm like, I don't even want to pay to watch them right now. I'd rather just go out wait for them to get hot and then deal with it then. So
Yeah, and their bullpen's been just as bad. I mean, Robinson's been really good. I thought Brooks Raley has been good, but then you look at everybody else. Ottavino's been either he gives you 1, 2, 3, or he gives them a big home run. He's given up
yeah,
way too many home runs.
yeah,
Smith
yeah,
is suspended. I didn't agree with the suspension again, but he really hasn't been that
ridiculous.
good.
They're
He really
ridiculous.
he really hasn't been that good. And who else they got?
Well,
Leo.
they got that kid, this guy that they brought up, who he hasn't been good. I mean, he kind of like came up. He was horrible. He maybe looked like he righted the ship, but he's been bad again. The guy that gave it up today, De Leon.
Leon, his first couple he was horrible to the point where it was like, why is he even in the league? Then he's recently been pitching pretty decently. He's given them some length and some games that they needed. I think in the extra inning game against the Yankees, he came in kind of late and kind of got him some outs when he didn't have a ton of guys. But he looked awful today, and a couple of Tommy Hunter was absolutely awful. He's out of the league.
He's been terrible. Hunter also. He's been terrible.
He's not
He's
even on
been
the team anymore. They cut him.
They did, yeah. He's been really bad.
They cut the Gosu too. Who's now in Arizona. I think in the minor leagues. He was not good. And Josh Walker since he came up, he's looked okay. He's looked pretty good. He hasn't pitched that much. Just other than that, they've just been circling between all these minor league guys like John Hurts, the guy Zach Muckerin, Grant Hartwig.
The guy that pitched today that we were talking about, they had brought him up. He pitched. He came up. He was like 3 up, 3 down. He pitched in one of the games. I don't know if they won or lost the game. I forget. But he pitched. He looked good. And then the next day they sent him back down.
Yeah.
Because they were doing something with the catchers and something with because he's young. He's got options. So they sent him back down. They brought him back up. Pitched good again. They sent him back down. They brought him back up. He pitched good today.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I got to leave this guy here. I don't care if these other guys don't have options. They need guys that can get outs right now. I don't care if they're 50 years old or 24 years old. They need some guys to get outs. So I don't know what they're going to do. This kid Lucchese that they had last year. He's more of a starter. I don't think he has a role here as a starter. He's coming off injury, but he's been pitching. He's been pitching relatively well, from what I understand, in the minors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he can. I don't know if he can work out of the bullpen. I don't know, but I mean, at this point, they're desperate. They got to try whatever they can try. And then there's a couple of guys that are going to be out there, free agents, depending on how things break. I think the guy that's with the Cardinals, if the Cardinals continue to play terrible, they got a guy that might be available. There's a couple of guys that are out. Who?
A reliever?
Yeah, reliever.
Helsley? The closer?
Yeah, I think so. There's another guy too. I'm trying to think of what team who's like, he's a fireballer. He throws 102. And he's on one of these teams that's not playing well either. I was listening today to one of the TV. There's a couple of guys that might be available if their teams continue to play garbage like they are now. So it just comes down, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like or don't know enough about him. Vientos. Where is this guy going to play with the Mets? They got Beatty. He's a third baseman. His positions are third base and first base.
Yeah.
He's young. He's not a DH. All right, he's not a DH. You need this guy to go down to the minors and rake, and then when the trade deadline comes along, somebody says, "You know what? We stink. Here's one of our relievers. We want Vientos." Now, Mauricio, if you're going to get a starting pitcher, you may have to give up both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. The other kid that they have down there, Parada. He's in single A. Now he's supposed to be
a problem.
He's supposed to be a stud, but I mean, this kid Alvarez, he's the real deal. At least he looks like he's the real deal right now. So, I mean, he could be a nice, but he's only in single A. But you know what? He's playing pretty well.
Yes.
So teams could say, hey, you know what? He's single. You know, these teams that are not making, excuse me, that don't have big payrolls. That's what they want.
Yeah.
They want guys that are young like that they can bring up that not going to cost them a lot of money. And then they hope, they cross their fingers and they say, you know, hopefully this kid turns into, you know, in a year or two, because he's another stud. He's supposedly another Alvarez. They said this kid can hit and he can catch. He's a good catcher. So we'll see. Mauricio's tearing the. I mean, he might be the next one that comes up. But I mean, if Vogie hadn't started hitting, he might have been gone.
Probably, yeah. If he's out, he had a home run in his first game. He had a really good series against Houston. So yeah, if
he hit today, he hit again today. I mean, he hit the other day. He's hitting right now, so it's like thank God. But I mean, if he hadn't, he might have been DFA'd also. He's not making a lot of money.
No,
you know, and that's a roster spot. Yeah, they're just not playing that well right now. You know, they're really. Oh, the other guy we haven't talked about, who had a real nice year for them last year, who's been mediocre, is Canna.
Yeah, he's a little better, but
yeah, he's and I like him. I like him. I like his personality. I mean, like I like their guys. There's nobody on the team that's like I don't like them. You know, they're not playing to the back of the baseball card right now, so they're struggling. The Mets are struggling, and on top of it all, the pitching is just brutal. Even when they hit like they have the last couple of days, even games against the Yankees, they're still losing games because they can't stop anybody. So it comes down to pitching. Always comes down to pitching, right?
And the last thing I'll ask you about the Mets before you move on to the New York Rangers. So I'm hearing a lot of people say, the seat should be getting high. Who do you think should go first? If they were to go, who do you think should get let go first? Buck Showalter, Billy Epler, or Jeremy Hefner?
Wow. I'm not laying this on Hefner. Because the two best pitchers they have are both veterans. The two guys that are not pitching the best. So I'm not leaving it on Hefner. You know, if they don't want to upset the Epler and the Buck thing, maybe they make a change just to make a change. I don't know. That's kind of like one of those things where they do what they do with hitting coaches. You know, they had Chavez last year was the hitting coach. They hit really well. He's assistant manager. So I don't know what I think they hired another guy to be like an assistant hitting coach.
Chavez, and they brought in or promoted the guy Barnes, who hasn't.
So I mean, it's like when they had, I forget the guy that they had that was there a couple of years ago that the team liked, the Mets were hitting, and then they let him go. And they brought in that guy from down in the minor. I mean, the guy was horrible. It was so bad. I forget his name. He was so bad.
Something.
And they had a guy that was there that the guys liked him. And he was an ex-baseball player, a real good one. I can't remember his name. Nonetheless, so I don't see them getting rid of Epler. But you know what? It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that. The last thing I'll mention about the Mets is that I guess the guy from the Brewers,
Stearns.
There's rumors. Yeah, there's rumors right now. There's rumors right now that he's going to be the president. He's going to be the president of the Mets organization. It's kind of like the role that Sandy had, but he's a GM too. So, you know what I mean? Is it like, do they just bring him in as president, or did they bring him in and then Epler goes? They get rid of Epler.
That's interesting because a couple of years ago when they tried to coach all these different guys and they all said no. He was one of the guys they went after, but a lot of the guys either said no, I don't want to interview, or they got blocked because they tried to go because they were a higher position.
Yeah.
When they asked him, he said, "My family is happy in Milwaukee." So
he's a New York guy, though. He's a New York guy.
So he kind of he was wishy-washy, kind of like, look, I'm happy here, but he didn't really say no, and the Mets got, but the Mets got blocked. He didn't. It's not like Stearns technically didn't turn it down like a lot of those guys did. The Brewers blocked the Mets from.
But I think that's the thing with making him the I think president of the team is considered a higher position than GM. You
Mhm.
can't block. You can't block a guy going to a higher position. Guy going from GM to GM, you can block. You can't block a guy going from something to a higher. Like if he was a coach, going to be a manager, you can't block. You know what I mean? So I don't know how that works. Kind of goes back to the whole Parcells and Belichick thing.
I think it's a little different because the whole thing with Stern, his contract is up after the season, so he's technically up. So they can
Yeah,
just
yeah,
fuck.
I saw something today. I read something today where they asked Uncle Stevie about it, and he didn't flat out he didn't say yes, but he didn't deny it. He kind of like moved on from it, but he didn't. The way that they said the way he answered the question was like, "There's something going on there. There's
Mhm.
something going on there between the two of them talking." And they said this guy, he's a New York guy. He would like the job. I know he would like the job. So yeah, it will be interesting. But that's next year. That's not this year. Um, the Mets are built to win right. I mean, theoretically, they're built to win right now. I mean, it still makes me want to throw up this whole thing with Diaz. I mean, what did I tell you? I told you I hate the World Baseball Classic for this reason. When they do it, that when they do it is so stupid, and it bit the Mets when the Mets had Seth Lugo. He pitched for Puerto Rico. They almost won the World Baseball Classic because they pitched the guy till his elbow almost fell off.
Yeah.
It was never the same. Pitched great for the Mets, couldn't start, and then they probably could have put him in the starting rotation, but they had him because he was probably one of their better relievers. But as a reliever, he couldn't pitch back-to-back games, so it was like he would pitch and then he'd have to sit down for 2 games. You're a mess. You're a mess, dude. You're a mess.
Yeah,
You're a
and
mess.
just going back to Stearns, the whole thing is like, all right, so if Epler is staying, do you have Stearns sort of above him? And if you're Billy Epler, it's like, ho, hold on, you just hired me 2 years ago, and they're bringing in a pretty big name guy to now be my
Yeah,
boss.
I think Apple's gone if he comes in. My opinion.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
would.
see them.
And look, I think if the Mets continue on this path, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets fired. I wouldn't even mind it, to be honest. But just like the whole thing, like let's say if even if they want to keep him, if you're Billy Epler, like would you even want to stay if they're bringing in Stearns? If I were
Yeah,
him,
I mean, I don't know. We would have to see if they
better
have.
off
I don't know
staying.
what type of relationship they have. I mean, look, they're both in the leagues, and obviously GMs talk to each other. Some
Mhm.
guys like each other, some guys don't like. You don't know. We don't know what that whole situation is. So hey, I don't know how long Epler's contract is. However long it is, you get
Got 4 years
paid.
when he.
Yeah. So the only nice thing about Uncle Stevie is the fact that we don't have to ever say, well, he's not going to get rid of the guy because he's paying. And this guy's stupid rich. All right, he's going to get what he wants. But you know what? The other thing, he hasn't been reactionary. Because they've tried to push his buttons a little bit to see, because the Mets haven't played well, and he's been pretty even keel. They've tried to compare him to Steinbrenner, like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Because Steinbrenner used to freak out.
Yes.
If he was paying when he used to pay guys big time, and they didn't pay. I don't know if I ever told you the story about who was it. I think it was Strawberry. Strawberry comes over to the Yankees. He says he really hadn't met. He really hadn't met. Hold on one second. I got something beeping in the background.
We're on talking with Jake. We're talking about how they kind of compared Cullen to Steinbrenner because they both spend
Yeah.
similar.
So they were saying this. Strawberry tells a story. He says he's just come over. He really said he really hasn't met Steinbrenner that well. I mean, he's met him, but like they haven't had a lot of conversations. And he says so. It's early in the season, and after the game, and he wasn't playing that well. And he said he's with his wife. Strawberry's with his wife, walking like in the tunnel, and Steinbrenner comes up, and Strawberry thinks he's gonna like, oh hi, Mr. Steinbrenner, this is my. And Steinbrenner like said something to him. He like almost didn't even acknowledge his wife about how he wasn't playing well. So he said that's George Steinbrenner. Guy wanted to win. So like him, don't like him, he wanted to win. He paid the money,
Yeah.
but he wanted to win. And he was one of the first, one of the original guys. He was one of the original guys that they were like, oh, this guy, what is he doing? He bought this team. I mean, he bought that team for pennies
Yeah.
when he bought them, and they're probably, if not the if they were ever sold, they probably bring in more money than any other team in any sport. I don't
Right.
think there's any other sport. I mean, look what the Dodgers got, and they got in the billions. That team's as good as the Dodger organization is. The Yankees are worth more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I live here in Tampa. They have a sign over here. They've won 40 divisions, 40,
That's crazy.
27 championships, but they've won 40 times. I mean, think about it. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, all right, let's move on from the Mets. What are we going to do next?
So we're gonna talk about the New York Rangers. So they had a good regular season, which the Mets aren't doing, but tough finish, losing in the first round, 7 games to the New Jersey Devils, despite having a pretty star-studded roster. The question to you is, and what do I do next? So they've already made a change. They made a coaching change. You fired Gerard Gallant, and you bring in Peter Laviolette, who's been around a while. Started with the Islanders, the Rangers crossed their route. He bounced around. He was in
Yeah,
Nashville for a bit. That was probably
yeah.
one of his strongest runs there, 6 years, was in the Cup final runs. He most recently was in Washington, was there 3 years, 2 first-round playoff exits, and then he missed the playoffs this year, and then they let him go. Now he's with the Rangers. So what's next for the Rangers?
All right, so got a couple of things with Laviolette. Not a huge fan, not a
Mm-hmm.
huge fan, but now he's a Ranger. Well, before we talk about Laviolette, let's talk about Gerard Gallant. Gallant. I liked Gallant, and I think the Rangers played well. They didn't play well in the playoffs. They didn't beat the Devils, but the Devils have a pretty good team. They got a good young team. But for a guy to get fired like he did this year, and to get fired the way he did with Vegas, leads you to believe there's something that we don't see
Mm-hmm.
behind the scene. I don't know. Maybe it's how he is with ownership. I don't know. But a very strange firings. He was really good. He was good with Vegas, and they fired him. For an expansion team, he did really well. And the Rangers have played well under him. So there's something that we're missing. So that would be my only comment on Milan. As far as Laviolette, you know me. I'm a Ranger. It is nothing I hate more in this world is than anything is the island. And I hate's a strong word. I hate the Islanders. I grew up in watching the Islanders just completely rip my heart out, winning those cups and just crushing us and being just tortured as a young kid in the late 70s to the 80s. And Laviolette was a coach for the Islanders. So right off the bat, there's a part of me that doesn't like it. All right. But he's been to the cup. He's won a cup.
In Carolina.
So you can't take, I've heard guys say good things about him, bad things about him, but from what I understand, and I didn't realize this, but he wasn't a great player, but I think he was a tough player. He was scrappy. He's definitely like that. I've seen some of his behind the scenes stuff. He's got a little edge to him. He will get in your face a little bit.
Okay.
He's not milk toast. He's got a potty mouth like your father. So he's from behind the scenes like that. I also read today that I don't know if you remember him, but he was also a guy to play for the Islanders. They're bringing in Michael Pekka. Do you remember Michael Pekka?
I've heard the name.
I believe he was a captain for the Islanders, but where did Pekka play for? Maybe Buffalo. Hell of a player.
Mm-hmm.
He's retired now. He's coaching.
I think I saw
Laviolette.
that he was being hired as an assistant with the Rangers.
He's going to be an assistant with the Rangers, so that'll be interesting. Real good player. I don't know what type of coach he is, but sometimes some of these guys that are ex players, make really good coaches. I mean, look at the guy in Carolina right now.
More.
No, what a player he was. I mean, I watched that guy his whole career. A guy was always in the most unbelievable shape. Two-way player, could score, could hit. He's not a fighter, but he would. I mean, he'd do whatever you need him to do, and you're never going to outwork the guy. And is just solid guy, and he gets it. And he's a hell of a coach. So we'll see. The thing that I'm hearing now with the Rangers is the Rangers got cap problems. They got cap problems, and I've read a couple of articles today that they're looking at 3 players right now because they could buy out one of their players, one of their stars, and the three of them is Panarin.
Oh.
That's one. 2 is Truba,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 is Barkley Goodrow. Those are the 3 guys. The first 2 that I mentioned are making big money, big money. Um, Goodrow's he's making decent money. I mean they killed Drury for the signing, not for the type of player he is, but for what they paid him.
At the time, yeah.
What they paid him. But I mean, you know me. Some guys you can't look in the stats. A good Goodrow's he's a glue
Yeah,
guy, man. He's a glue
player.
guy. Whatever he scores a goal here and there. He fights. He's tough. He sticks up for his teammates. He hits. He plays defense. He does it all. He's a two-way player. To me, he's worth the money. So I don't see him. I mean, I don't see him going because he's not making big money. When Troops first came over, first year or so, he was it was okay. Yeah, did some nice things, but I was like, I don't know about this guy. Last year and they just made him the captain.
Yeah.
So I'd be shocked. You know what I mean? I'm shocked. But he's been the guy. Last year he was the guy that they saw. That's the guy that they wanted to get. He's still relatively young. The guy that's scared has who, and I've told you this before. The second best signing that I've ever seen in my lifetime for the Rangers is Panarin. The first was Messier. The best signing they ever did, ever. Guy came here. He said, I came here to win a cup. The first year he was here, they missed the playoffs, and they crucified Messier. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Messier. He brought us a cup. My first in my lifetime, maybe the only one I ever see in my lifetime, but I got one.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for Messier. All right. So, but Panarin, there's been a lot of guys that the Rangers have brought in here over the years that they bring these guys in where they score 30, 40 goals at another team. They come in, they score 20 for the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
This guy Panarin, he scores in the regular season. I never seen a guy pass like that. The guy puts the puck on the tape. He's freakish like that. But the last 2 years in the playoffs, he's not been good.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know if I don't know what it is, but it's not been good.
2 years ago, I think he was hurt, but this year there was no excuse.
Yeah, and there's one series, but he was like he wasn't on the ice.
Yeah.
So he might be the one guy. I don't know. I don't want. I'm not saying I want to see that because I like him there. But but the other thing too, that's a hard. That it's not a trade; it's a buyout. There's like I guess there's a rule. There's a certain period of time which is like coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, like guys getting bought out. Like the Vancouver Canucks bought out Oliver Ekman-Larsson is a defenseman. So like
you got one guy. You get one. I think there's one. Right. You're allowed to do it with one player. So that's what's being talked about right now with the Rangers. They're looking whether or not they're going to re-sign Halak. And there's another goaltender in the league. I forget the guy's name. I mean, obviously, what's his face is not going anywhere. Igor's not going anywhere. But there's another player. He's a goaltender. Oh, I'm sorry. The other guy that I didn't mention for buyout is Kreider.
Really?
I got him right in front of me. They got him. The guys that they named are Goodrow, Trouba, Kreider, and Panarin. Those are the 4 guys. Now, whether they're rumors or they're not rumors, those are the 4 guys that are because they got no cap space. I think they have like $14 million in cap space. That's it. And they don't have all their guys signed. So they got problems. And so they just brought in this kid. Well, the kid that they brought in last year, Zach, what was his? He's a defender, young
Zach Jones.
They just signed him to a 2-year deal. So they just wrapped him up, and he played real well for them. They are crossing their fingers that this guy's the real deal because they need it. They need it. Otherwise, they got to go out and get something else. And they don't have the money. So it'll be interesting. I tell you what, Drury's done a pretty good job. He's done a pretty good job. I think, guys, like they said, they criticized the Goodrow deal. The things that he's done have been good.
Mm-hmm.
I can't fault him. I think he's been good. I was kind of shocked. I was shocked that Gallant got fired. I heard guys. I got some of my friends that are big Ranger fans, and they were saying, "No, he's going to get fired." I was like, "I don't think so." I mean, they didn't. Yeah, they went out in the first round, but he's been good. They've been good. The year before they were real good. They almost got to the cup. They probably should have won. They probably should have got there. They probably should have beat Tampa. This year was disappointing. So, guys disappeared.
Yeah.
Guys disappeared in the playoffs. Can't have it. So man, you got to change. Sometimes you got to change to move forward. So we'll see what happens with the Rangers. But I think that's everything that's going on, except for what did you tell me that happened today with the ex-Rangers?
Hmm?
What did you tell me today?
What did I say?
He wears a crown.
Lundqvist, he got in the Hall of Fame.
The king. The king got in. I always thought there was maybe it's just me. I'm getting old, and it's been more years than I thought. But I thought there was a waiting period before you get in.
I thought it was 4 years. I'm not sure.
He's been out that long.
I know the year they brought him out, and then
I would say it's like 2 years, maybe 3 years. That's what it seems like, because he went to Washington. What do you go, Washington?
He signed, but then he had the heart surgery, so he didn't play. The year after he retired, and then it's been a year. I think a year since that, so it may have been 4. I'm not sure.
I mean, whatever it is, he must have. But I mean, the only guy I ever know they ever waived that for was Gretzky. No waiting period for Gretzky. First year, they said we're waiving the 4 years. Gretzky goes in. And I don't even know if they voted. They just said he's in the Hall of Fame. His numbers are so ridiculous. So, I mean, that's funny. We talk about. It almost annoys me because they make such a big deal, and I love Ovechkin, throwback player. Guys, I mean, you don't want to get hit by that guy, and he's a scoring machine.
Yes.
And he's had his detractors over the years as far as defense and stuff like that, but he's old school. He's an old school player. He could play on my team any day of the week. But they're making such a big deal about the fact that he's getting close to the goal scoring thing. He's still 900 points away from getting close to Gretzky. 900. Think about it. The record's only like 18 on whatever it is. He's 900. The next closest guy is 900 points away from, and you can say whatever you want. Oh, well, Gretzky played on the 900. Do the math. He's the greatest. He's Babe Ruth that played in our time, in our lifetime. That's what this guy did. I mean, the things that this guy did, it's a freak. He's a freak. I mean, I don't remember the last guy that had a 200-point season like Gretzky. 200 points he had in a season. Think about that. That's crazy. Guys get 100 points now. They lose their mind. They're like, oh, this guy's a great player. He's a 100-point player. And that is the gold standard. You score 100, you get 100 points. That's gold standard. 200 in a season. Yeah, that's crazy. That's why he's the great one. That's why that's why he wore 99.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think about the Rangers?
So I was not surprised that Gallant got fired. I was honestly waiting for it once the first round ended.
Really?
I was not that surprised. Look, they won a bunch of games. I thought his first year there, I thought he had an argument to win Coach of the Year. He was the finalist. But this year, it felt like every single game he was changing the lines, and it became a point where it was almost frustrating for me to see him change the lines every single day. It seemed like he was changing them even during the game.
Yeah.
You really can't get a rhythm if you're playing with different guys. And also, the Rangers were a team that were built to win the Cup. The Bruins go down in the first round. They also hoping to win the Cup and lose in the first round. And just the effort that they showed in the first round was absolutely pathetic. It was garbage.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it was disappointing. Very.
When they lost in Game 5, I thought, okay, if they lose the series, I wasn't sure if he'd be allowed on the team plane. I'm not gonna lie. I was not sure Actually, I shouldn't even say playing because the game was in New Jersey in Game 7.
The bus.
I was like, do they let him on the bus? I don't know if you do.
Excuse me.
I don't know if you let.
Yeah, I'm
It's like,
telling you, there's something. There must be something about his personality. And like press conference wise, I mean, I like him. And from what I understand, he's before my time. But from what
um,
I understand, he's a tough dude. Like he was a tough player.
mhm,
Um, he seems very mellow in his press conferences,
mhm.
but you never know. He could be the kind of guy that with ownership or whatever that could be abrasive. I for a guy to have two teams that have played as well as they have and get fired like that very quickly, there's something that to me that's weird. Maybe I could be way off base, but that's just weird.
I think that's fair. I think with Vegas, the ownership there is very impatient. Like Gallant wasn't they named the coach of the expansion team. They got the team that they got. He was in the Cup final his first year. He was in the playoffs the first 3 years, and then like his fourth year, middle of the year, they were struggling, and then they fired him. And then they brought in somebody else who was in the playoffs a couple of years ago. And he had 1 year he didn't make the playoffs, really because he had so many injuries, and he let him go. So maybe it's just whoever the owner is just very, very impatient.
Yeah,
He's just an impatient owner. And with this, I just think that the Rangers were like, this team is, to me, when you come up that short, you have that many contracts, you have that many great players, and you lose in the first round of the playoffs to
yeah,
the team you really should have beat in the Devils. Devils are very good, great offensively.
but they're young.
Goaltending, they're so young. Rangers should have beat them. Something needs to change, and
Yeah,
whether that's a roster shakeup, whether that's the coach, whether that's the GM, someone needs to go, and they gotta point the finger at somebody. You gotta figure out. You gotta attack the problem at its source, and I think they thought the problem was Gallant, so they took him. But now it's what do you do next?
yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what type of style they play under Laviolette. Sometimes just as a shake up, it's going to be interesting to see what they come at. It's a little early. We haven't seen any moves yet,
Mm-hmm.
other than signing Zach Jones,
Mm-hmm.
who's a young player who's good. They've got some good. They have a decent farm system, and they've brought up a bunch of guys that have played well. Um, comes down to the playoffs. You got to score. You got to
Yeah.
score. You need great goaltending, but you got to score. And your big guys got to score. Either your big guys got to score, or you got to have a guy that comes out of nowhere and just has an unbelievable series or an unbelievable playoffs. The one thing that's funny, not to do with the Rangers, but I kept seeing. I mean, kudos to Vegas, but they're making such a big deal about the fact that they were an expansion team, they won so fast. But I mean, did you see how they took players from the way that they didn't they did that in the past, but not the way they did this time. I mean, every team lost players that you couldn't protect. I mean, they were loaded.
I mean,
They were loaded to start.
you got Jonathan Marshall in that draft. He was on Florida actually. He was a really,
Yeah,
really good player. He had like 12 goals in the playoffs or something crazy like that. He's not on the team anymore, but Marc-Andre Fleury was still a really good goalie.
yeah,
Pittsburgh left him unprotected because they thought Matt Murray was going to be something special, and now there's a reason that he's on the worst contract in hockey now. He's the backup in Toronto now.
yeah.
Now Tristan Jarry is the goalie in Pittsburgh, or he's a free agent now. But he was still a good goalie, and Vegas got him. But yeah, so yeah, they got a really good team. And I mean they took some young guys, but a lot of their picks they kind of picked almost to win now, which is kind of odd as an expansion team. Pick to win now, but it kind of worked. They got a couple 6 or 7 years.
You know what? With the way that they were able to populate their team so quick, and it's a win now. It's a win now league. Sports is just like that now. It's just it comes down to money, and we're gonna talk about money in a minute
Yeah,
because
right.
that's what's going on in golf. One last thing on the Rangers. So I was wrong. This is what it says. It says the blue shirts have just under $12 million in cap space with only 14 players signed. to go. They got 7 more guys they got to sign.
Yeah.
And they only got $12 million under the cap. So Rangers got problems, financial problems as far as what they're going to do. So that's I think that's why when we were talking about early on why there's so much talk about a buyout for one of these big guys, because they, either that or they just suck it up and they hope that Panarin has an unbelievable year. They hope that some of their young guys start scoring. They hope that Kreider has another 50-goal season. That kind of stuff. That's hope. I don't see that happening, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I'm really not sure what we're going to see this year.
What they really need is Lafreniere. They need Lafreniere.
Oh my God, that's yes. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that, because all right, when you get you got a number 1 and a number 2 back to back, and they're good players. They're not. I mean, how good is Jack Hughes?
Phenomenal.
All right, so what if we had gotten it? What if Kako was Jack Hughes?
They would have.
You know what I mean? Then then we got a different team. We have a different team. What if Lafreniere was Jack Hughes, or at least the guy that we thought we were getting? A generational talent. You know what I mean? He hasn't been a generational talent. He's been good. He's a solid player. They're still young. They're still like 22 years old. They're still young, but we got guys that are in the leagues that, when a team like the Oilers draft McDavid, I mean, it took them maybe a year and a half, and the next thing you know, this guy's a freak. And then I don't know how the hell I don't even know where this guy Draisaitl came from. But then you got the 2 of them on the same team. I mean, that's why they're they go further in the playoffs, and they're still a young team. So sometimes it's those drafts, the Rangers. I don't remember in my lifetime ever having a number 1, seeing them get a number 1, not like an overall number 1. You gotta hit when you get that. Some of the guys that the Rangers had that were great on those old teams, that were homegrown guys, are Richter and Leach. High draft picks. At least Leachy was, but they weren't the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
But they were generational. They were both great. And then they brought in a lot of guys. They brought in guys from the Oilers. They brought in Messier. That changed everything. Messier he was a difference maker. He changed everything. Not just with his play, but he's maybe the greatest sports captain. Yeah, in my lifetime, he's the greatest sports captain I've ever seen. I think he's the only captain in any sport that's won a cup with one team, went to another team, became the captain on that team, and won a cup. I don't think that's been done before. At least going back a while, like when he did it, that had never happened before, ever. But he did little things like, they said like his first season, even they didn't make the playoffs, but he said like his first season, they're in the locker room, they come in after the game, they lose the game, guys threw their jerseys on the floor. He said, "What the hell is that?" He said, "Pick that up. You don't throw this is a New York Rangers jersey. You don't throw that on the floor. You don't do that." And guys listen, because he had 4 cups. You know what I mean? He changed the culture. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Rangers. Be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting what happens. And the last topic we're going to talk about is golf. So about a week or 2 ago, the PGA and the Live Tour merged. So this was extremely shocking. The PGA Commissioner, Jay Monahan, said, when Live became a thing and guys were defecting, he said, anybody who goes to the Live Tour, the PGA card is gone. They can't play in certain things. Eventually, they allowed to play in the majors and some of the other events. And then, he said, you will never merge them. You will never merge with them. And then they merged to the dismay of a lot of PGA golfers, because they literally found out via the news report on TV, just like you and I did. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
All right. So here I got a couple of things. Look, I think a lot of people are hypocrites when it comes to, all right, so we talk about, people are like, well, how could you do it? The Saudis, the Saudis had something to do with 9/11. Like, look, you were a baby. You were just born. You were just born. I mean,
I wasn't even alive yet.
All right, so you don't like. I mean, you know what 9/11 is, but as a New Yorker, I was supposed to fly that morning. All right, your mom was pregnant. I was supposed to fly from New York to Chicago that morning. The night before, your mom wasn't feeling well. And I actually called the guy and I said, you know what? Do you really need me to come? Because I was meeting another guy there, and he was like, if she's not feeling, because her mom was a little later on, he said, don't worry about it. I could take care of it myself. So I was actually that morning. I actually slept in. I was going to go into the office late, and I actually happened to be downstairs, and the telephone rang, and it was Sergio, my buddy Sergio. He was like, "Hey, what's going on there?" He said, "I heard a plane just hit the building," and that was so. All right, so when that happened, as a New Yorker growing up, driving into the city with my father, on Sundays to go see the Rangers because we used to have season tickets to the Rangers. I always remember driving in, and it would be, it'd start to get dark, and you would always see the towers, lit up. We don't see the towers. Like I remember the feeling of watching when the first tower fell. Like just like full, I almost can't express it, but it was so strange because I was like, wow, it's gone. It's like gone. The Twin Towers is gone. All right, so we know that the Saudis had something. First of all, Bin Laden's a Saudi. All right, let's not. He's a Saudi. He's a rich Saudi, and his parents are very connected. All right, so even though the Saudis are, in essence, somewhat of our allies as far as our government, there's a lot of bad blood there, bad taste in people's mouth with regards to the Saudis. So there's that part. So people are hypocrites and saying, how could you do this? How could you do this? How could you do this? Well, let me ask you a question. When your gas tank is on E, what do you do? When you're driving and your gas tank is on E, what do you do? You go to the gas station, right? You go to the gas station. Well, where do you think most of that gas comes from? It comes from over there. So people talking out two sides of their mouth. If they felt that strongly about it, maybe they wouldn't buy gas. It's like, well, we're not going to worry about the gas. We're not going to worry about the gas, but we don't want our golfer guys to have. So that was the first thing. The other part was where they were saying, to me, it debunked the part with the golfers. How could these guys take all this money? I look at it like this. All right, so you're a regular Tom, Dick, and Harry. You have a job. You make $100,000 a year. You go to work 5 days a week, and you make $100,000 a year. All right, you make a decent living. All right, a company comes and they say, here, you only have to work 4 days a week. All right, and I'm going to pay you $1 million a year. What do you think? How many people you think aren't going to do that? Well, that's pretty much what they did. That's what they did with a lot of these guys. They said, look, we're going to give you millions and millions and millions of dollars right up front, and you only got to play 3 days a week. You don't have to play 4 days a week. They only do 3 days a week there. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday tournament. Now, the downside was that I don't think they realized what the fallout was going to be. But so for me, the thing that bothers me the most is this. I like golf. I like to play golf. I like to watch golf. What do you want to watch when you watch golf? Like, what did we just watch on the U.S. Open? We watched the best players in the world, whether it's, the week before where it was Koepka, or DeChambeau, or, guys that are on the LIV Tour. There's a lot of guys on the LIV Tour that are some of the best in the world. Now, the guy that's the number one in the world, Scotty
Scheffler.
Scheffler. All right. So, hell of a player. But he's probably not the number one golfer in the world if all those guys don't defend. You know what I mean? It helped his career a little bit. I think it helped a bunch of guys' careers, raise up in the rankings. So, and you know how I feel about Rory. Not a fan. Great player. I respect his game. Guy's a great player, but shut up. I mean, I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to hear it. And to me, I mean, like, what is, aside from the majors and the majors and the players, what is some of the best golf that we ever watched? The Ryder, right? The Ryder Cup, right? I mean, what's better than the Ryder Cup? The United States versus the world, the Patrick Reed. I mean, bro, have we ever seen anything like that? That was, I mean, first of all, they're not playing for any money, and those guys want to win. They want to win. I mean, look at DeChambeau. I mean, what is he most worried about? He's not worried about PGA. He wants to put it right. All right. So who are they hurting? Who is the PGA hurting by saying, Kepka, this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. You can't play in the Ryder. You can't come to our majors. You can't play in the PGA major. You can't. Who are they hurting? They're
Close.
hurting. They're hurting the fans. We want to see them. So they're a bunch of babies. They're a bunch of spoiled, rotten babies. That's how I look at it. But it all comes down to money. And the reason I'm going to bring that up is I'm going to read something here that I got. So they announced the deal, and if I can't find it, I'll kind of I'll basically said. So we know it's about money, right? We know it's about money. I forget whatever it's called. There's something. It's live, but live has a different name. It's called like the PIF or something like that.
It's the Public Investment Fund, PIF.
The PIF. Okay, so the PIF. So they said, do you know what the PIF is going to put into the PGA? Not millions. Okay, change the M. Billions. I read. They're going to be giving the PGA billions of dollars. So that's where you know what the Monahan basically, and he did some really stupid things. Look, he had a strong stance, but do me a favor, don't bring up the families from 9/11 and use them as a reason why because he did. He said, how do you look these people in the face? Trotted these people out there. I mean, literally trotted them out there. He basically said, I know people that died out there and have families that have died out there. We're never going to do this. And then he goes and does this. Right. Mm-hmm. So, he's got as much egg on his face as anybody. But you know what? You know why you're able to do that? Billion, not million, billion. So when money talks, BS walks. That's all I got to say about this whole thing that's what it comes down to. And, for me as a golf fan, I'm happy. I'm happy. I don't know what's going to happen. The PGA is trying to put a spin on it like, well, yes, we merged, but we're the boss. All right. If that makes them feel better, that's great. And they still don't necessarily have to let these guys play in their things. First of all, both of these teams were embroiled in massive lawsuits.
Yes.
Massive lawsuits. And you know what costs a lot of money? Lawyers.
Yep. I'm gonna say something about that.
All right. So what do you think about it? Me personally, I'm happy that it happened because I want to see all the players.
Yeah, I'm happy that it happened. The whole clashing thing, I thought didn't make any sense. I thought it was stupid. I thought guys were being a little arrogant about it. The guys who were complaining about it.
Yeah.
And but I'm happy it happened. The whole reason to happen, like you said, it's all about money. It's all about money. Money talks. So these two there's a public lawsuit out there.
Oh, multiple lawsuits, not just a lawsuit, multiple.
Yeah, there was multiple lawsuits out there. And like you said, lawyers cost a lot of money. And also, if you're the PGA Tour and the Live Tour, you're a business. PR is a thing. You want the spotlight, especially, this is all happening, right before the U.S. Open for the PGA Tour. You want the spotlight to be on the golfers and the golf tournaments and the guys who are doing these great performances. You want the spotlight to be on, Brooks Koepka.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
You want the spotlight to be on Wyndham Clark, who just won the PGA Championship for his first ever major. If these two went through with the lawsuit, the spotlight would not have been on Wyndham Clark. It would not have been on Brooks Koepka. Maybe partly, but it would have been on the lawsuit. They're going to court. I just don't think they wanted to go to court. So then, remember, the lawsuit had been out there for a while. But I honestly forgot about them. And then when the merger happened, I'm watching SportsCenter, and then the guy, the SportsCenter guy, the golf guy, Michael whatever, or whatever his name is, the guy with the beer on SportsCenter who covers golf, and then he brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And I thought about it. I was like, I think the PGA was waiting for at some point the lift tour was going to go forward, and then they would go from there. The live tour thought, or like the PG tour at some point, he's not going to want to be sued by us, and then it was just a standoff, and they were both waiting for each other to make a move. It was almost like a game of chess almost, and then they both realized, going to court does not serve either of them well, because now it takes the spotlight off of both of their leagues and both of all the golfers who deserve the spotlight.
Yeah.
And it costs a lot of money, and they don't want to do it. Now, they can't afford it. They have plenty of money. The PGA Tour has plenty of money. The Live Tour has the money to give guys 9-figure contracts. Top players in the world.
Look, PGA's got a lot of money, right? PGA's got a lot of money. The Saudi money that we're talking about is about 100,000 times more than what the PGA will ever have. You can't the money. We're talking about oil. We're talking about oil money. All right. We're talking global money. There's nobody richer in this world on the face of the earth than the Saudis, period. All right. They wanted to be in golf. They were going to be in golf. Okay. The Live Tour probably never be successful by itself. They didn't care. They wanted to be in golf. And I think the PGA said, look, we can fight it and fight it and fight it and fight it. We're going to spend a shitload of money, excuse my language, but we're going to spend a lot of money trying to, even if we win, we're going to spend a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I think, what, when cooler heads prevailed, I think it's pretty interesting because I don't know if you read this, but, Norman is out.
He is not involved. Yes, he's not involved.
He's out, and they didn't want him a part. I mean, they didn't invite him to the Masters. He wasn't invited to the Masters. Now, the Masters is not the PGA. The Masters is the Masters. Okay, the U.S. Open is the U.S. Open. It's not the PGA. The only major that's the PGA is the PGA to win the PGA. All right. The other one and the fifth major, which is the Players Championship. That's the best players on the tour. Only get invited on the PGA Tour. Get invited, or actually in the I shouldn't say that. I think it is the World, but they're in the PGA rankings. Get invited to the Players, but I don't know if you noticed this, and I think you and I might have talked about this. That we watched the Masters, right? The 4 days, I never miss it. They did not mention Live one time. They didn't mention Live at the announcers. During the broadcast was never mentioned ever, not even in passing. So it was they said do not. They told these guys do not. They told Nance do not bring up Live. Don't do it. Don't do it. They didn't not one time. I was like, I was pretty shocked at that. So I was like,
not thank them for being your friend.
yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, so me overall, you know what? It's millionaires crying about millions of dollars. Things that we'll never have, problems that we'll never have. The guys on the PGA Tour, the guys that are bitching, there's maybe a handful of guys. Rory's one of them. That he's probably more pissed now that he didn't take $60 million. Okay, and they asked him about it too because they said, "Well, what is the PGA going to do for you?" Now that you decided you were a loyal soldier, you didn't take the money. You not only didn't take the money, but you were the face of this whole thing going forward. And now they merged. You're not getting that. Liv is not coming to Rory and giving him $60 million now. So they asked him, "What are you going to do?" And to his credit, he said, "That's going to be a conversation that's going to have to be had." They asked him that in a press conference, and he did say that. He said, there's things going on right now, blah, blah, blah. But he said, that's a conversation that's going to be had. They really, how do they do that? I'm not a Rory fan, but how do they do that to Rory McIlroy that he finds out like that?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the issues the golfers had was they stayed loyal. And they know what was going on probably, and then Monahan told them we will never merge with the Live Tour. Don't take the money, and they didn't because they thought they were doing the right thing, and now they merged, and they were just like, dude, like I could have made.
I could have. They're gonna make $50 million, $100 million. Now, look, the Tiger turned down like $100 million, something like that. I forget what the number was.
Tiger can afford to do that.
Tiger can afford to do. The Tiger's never going to miss a meal. All right. And you know what? Rory probably makes. I think Rory makes more money off the tour than he does on the tour, and he makes good money on the
Yes.
tour. But he makes more money in commercials from Nike, from stuff like that. But not that.
No.
I mean, $40 million is $40 million. All right. When you're making that type of money, all right, here's the truth of it, and it's kind of a stupid thing to say, but it's true. All right. If you're making $40 million at their tax bracket, they're really making $22 million. They're making 22. The other 18 is going to the government. That's where your
Yeah.
taxes are going. But that's $20 million. $20 million. You invest $20 million. Your kids can't spend that money. Period. All right. They just can't. Not if you do it right. Not if you do it right. I saw this thing on TV. You were talking about money. I saw this thing on TV, and we were talking about taxes. Like, how do you save money? They said, all right, so if you own a business, you could pay your kid, your child doesn't work for you. They could be in preschool. You could pay your kid $16,000 a year, tax free, once a year. All right. They said, so let's say you own a business, you own a successful business. You take that $16,000, you put it in a Roth IRA. You do that for they were saying like 10 years or 15 years. By the time they're ready to collect on that money, they've got, because of the rollovers and all, millions. They've turned that 16 that maybe is like $200,000. It turns out to be millions. So money makes money. The money is why this whole thing happened with the Live Tour. Like I said, for me personally, I want to watch Koepka. I want to watch DeChambeau. I want to watch these guys all play up against each other. The only people they were hurting by complaining about, not letting these guys go, is the fans, is the people that watch golf. All the other stuff is just a bunch of crybabies, as far as I'm concerned. They forget that, if you and I and every other person doesn't watch golf, or doesn't go to these tournaments, or doesn't go to the Garden to watch the Rangers, or we don't go, they're not making all of this money, right? They're not. What did we just watch? We watched, or I told you I was watching the thing on the Lakers and Celtics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I took out of that, they were talking about, Bird and Magic, what they did for the league, how much. Because look at the NBA now, right?
Yeah.
Look how big they are.
Mm-hmm.
They said, and Magic says in that thing, he says, when I came into the league, when we went to the finals, he said, I played the game and then I went home and watched it on TV because it was on tape delay.
Yeah, they saved the NBA.
Tape delay. Could you think about that? Think about that. It was on tape delay. That's where the league has gone, and they were struggling. I mean, what did they ask? They asked they interviewed David Stern in that thing, and they were like, they needed money, they needed sponsors, and I forget who it was. He said, but we were like, we thought we were going to get this. We thought we were going to get this contract. We thought these guys were going to sign with us. And he said, and so that day they found out, no, they didn't pick the NBA. You know who they picked?
Oh.
Missile, the Major League Soccer League. That's where the team decided to put their money. So that's where the NBA was back then. So money talks. Money has got a lot to do with everything.
Yeah, it does. And the last thing I'll say is, I just think the PGA guys, not only were they, like, we didn't take the money and then now you merge. I just think, like, the Live Tour wasn't exactly thriving. I mean,
no, it wasn't. Not at all. You're right.
At first, people had to pay like a couple of dollars a day to watch them on YouTube TV.
Yeah.
And the TV deal I got was with the CW, not CBS or Fox or ABC. They didn't get a major deal. They're on. It was either, at first you had to pay to watch them on YouTube TV, and then they're on the CW, who I forget. I don't know if I've ever watched the CW in my life. And then, so I just think the PGA Tour thought they were literally drowning, and opposed to just letting them drown, which, it seemed like that's what Monahan would love to see.
They weren't going to drown though. They weren't going to drown.
Basically, I think the players thought you just threw them a lifeboat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got two things there. One, again, the Saudis and their money. Okay, they really didn't care. They didn't care. They know what they were doing. They have money, literally money to burn. They just wanted to be in the golf business. They just decided we want to be in the golf business. We'll be in the golf business, even if we don't make money. You think they're going to live to make money? These guys, these Saudis, bro, they got a lot bigger business than they got doing a golf thing. All right, they're selling oil to the world. Okay, that's basically what they did. All right. The other thing is the guys on the PGA Tour are making more money now because of Live. Because of Live, the purses have gone up, everything's gone up, and it was going to continue to go up because they got to try to keep guys.
Yeah.
So I think everybody in the long run, everybody made out. Everybody made out. This guy Monahan, he'll probably be out of a job in 2 years because behind the scenes, guys are going to say, "Fuck this guy." You know what? We don't care that Liv came in, but we want him out. He made us look stupid.
But, about a week ago, they said that he was sick and he had some sort of health problem, and they said he was not handling the day-to-day operation. I thought one of two things. One, because of the stress of all this, because he had that one meeting like very tense. Maybe the stress of all that had caused him health problems. Or two, whoever his higher ups are want him out, and they're saying, okay, what we're going to do? We're going to say you have a health problem. You're not handling day-to-day operations, and in 2 weeks you are to resign. I thought it was one of those two things. Obviously, nothing's happened yet. I thought that was possible.
I maybe to save face, but I think that there's going to be guys like Rory and other big players that are going to say, "All right, it's done. You made us look really stupid. This guy's got to go.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to go." They may never come out and say why, but that's just my feeling. I could be wrong. I just have a feeling in a year or so he's going to be gone. They're just going to. All right, they used him. He's going to take all the blame. He's the guy that he's already said, "I'm going to be called a hypocrite." He said. Says PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan acknowledged he would be called a hypocrite and said he accepts the criticism. Trust me, Monahan, he's getting paid too. He's making a lot of money. So you know what? He stuck his neck out there. What do you think? When he did this deal, he didn't know that he was going to get crucified?
Of course he did.
They're going to pay him too. He's going to get paid too. Everybody's going to get paid. You know who's not getting paid? You and me, Jake. We're not getting paid. So, well, you're going to get paid one day. You're going to be a big star. You're going to be a big star, right? All right, buddy. I love you.
I love you too, dude. And that is all we got for you guys today. Dad, thank you for coming on. And until next time, so long. Have a great day.
There you go.